Huge crowds have taken to the streets of major cities from New York to Los Angeles to protest U.S. President Donald Trump. The protests are the largest against Trump since he was reelected and came on the day that thousands of troops, military vehicles, and aircraft rolled through Washington in an unusual display of American might. The parade was in honor of the U.S. Army's 250th birthday, and it just happened to coincide with the president's 79th birthday.
Washington, San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles. Just some of the many U.S. cities where hundreds of thousands of people rallied against President Donald Trump, marching under the slogan, "No Kings." Protesters accused Trump of authoritarianism and of militarizing the country's democracy.
We have a king and his court and his beige henchmen, and they're trampling on our rights and our laws and our freedoms, making themselves richer with taxpayer dollars and making us less safe with their love of other kings and dictators and the likes of Putin and Netanyahu and Kim Jong-un of the world.
The demonstrations come on the heels of protests flaring up around the country over federal immigration enforcement raids and Trump's decision to send National Guard troops and Marines to Los Angeles to quell protests against the measure.
I think it's atrocious. My grandfather, my uncle, my dad, my two brothers were all in the military, and my dad would be turning over in his grave if he saw what was going on today. To be using our military to expel hardworking immigrants from our country, to jail them, to bring, it's just awful.
In Los Angeles, protesters clashed with police again, and officers used tear gas to disperse the crowds. Organizers timed the protest to counter a massive military parade organized by the government to celebrate the Army's 250th anniversary, with military vehicles and aircraft and thousands of soldiers.
Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too. That's what we're doing tonight.
The parade also coincides with Trump's 79th birthday, which some protesters say was the real reason behind the event.
Obviously, we're doing it because it's his birthday. If it wasn't his birthday, we wouldn't be doing it. And whatever else they say about this being the anniversary of the Army, it just wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for his birthday. It's simply to give him attention and rub his ego a little bit.
The last U.S. military parade was held by President George Bush in 1991 to celebrate the U.S.-led victory in the Gulf War.
DW reporter Steven Beardsley joins me now. Steven.
Hey, Melissa.
Thanks for joining us. Donald Trump has been wanting some kind of military parade even during his first term.
Sure, that's right.
He's explained a little bit why, but talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, Melissa, military parades are part of American history, to be honest. They've happened before. It's just that they've become less frequent in recent decades. And there are a number of reasons for that. They usually follow military victories, and there have been fewer clear-cut military victories since the end of World War II, the Persian Gulf obviously being one of the differences there, seemingly a clear-cut victory. Another reason is that, honestly, in the modern era, it's been dictatorial governments, totalitarian governments who have really been the ones to carry out these kinds of parades. And that's been very clear. We see it with, obviously Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, North Korea, and more recently China. And so I think within military and policy elites in the U.S., you really see that kind of coupling of, is this what we want to do as a democracy, is kind of flex our might in the same way. And even the thinking that, if anything, it's an expression of insecurity to say that we have to show how mighty we are, when the facts on the ground show the power projection of the U.S. military, the bases around the world, the kind of reach that it has with carriers and weapon systems and all of that. And so that was the thinking beforehand. But, with Donald Trump, obviously his strategy is very much around spectacle and imagery, and so it's not so much of a surprise to see that he embraces these kinds of visuals and that he wants to be in proximity to it as well as an individual. What's concerning, and I should add that obviously, for many Americans, they do frankly want to celebrate the military. They want to celebrate the Army.
Sure.
They consider that important. There is obviously this ongoing concern. It's been growing in recent decades that the military is frequently used as a political prop. And we saw this recently with Trump's visit to a base in North Carolina, an Army base, also as part of the celebrations of the Army, in which it turned into a political rally with a lot of his...
partisan.
Absolutely.
And the people were selected for their political alliance.
That's right. Even said no fat soldiers would be sitting behind him, right? So, but it was also about alliance. They were whooping, calls for quelling the insurrection in Los Angeles. This is very political. And that, to me, I think for military historians and those who are observers of this, it's going to be the bigger black eye than this military parade, to be honest, those kinds of events.
Now, this same weekend, we've also seen the No Kings protest. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think the demands there, this was obviously a coordinated series of protests across the U.S., and it was timed to this parade because this parade is seen obviously as an expression of executive power. And this administration, especially the second term of Donald Trump, has really been characterized by boundary-pushing executive power. And so I think what we saw was essentially there are no explicit demands of the U.S. government, but there is one demand that this executive power be curbed, that there are it's more comparable to a kind of a single ruler system than a balance of power which the American democracy has celebrated for hundreds of years. And we have seen that Congress has been meek during this administration so far. We've seen that the courts have been tested as never before. Is this an autocracy? Is it a dictatorship? No, it's not. But
the opposition party, the Democrats, have also been quite unfocused.
Trying to find a strategy.
Yeah.
And, the Trump administration has made no bones of the fact that it wants to do this, that it wants to push the boundaries of executive power, that it believes the courts can't test it in certain areas. And so, this is an expression of this kind of outrage over that kind of use of executive power. And it's been timed to counter the visuals of the military parade. They said, the organizers said they wanted a split screen effect so that everyone could see the kind of outrage to these kind of policies, and then they would also see this military parade.
Very quickly, I mean, there's been a lot of news this weekend. There were also politically motivated killings in Minnesota. What's the latest on that?
Right, a state senator in Minnesota was killed. Her husband was killed as well, and then others were targeted. Political violence is not unique to this moment in American history. It's always been existent in American history, but in this kind of moment in which things are so heightened, and you have an administration that seems to want to push things, that seems to want to pour fuel into the fire of things like Los Angeles, then I think we were very concerned about what we'd see in recent weeks, and especially Saturday when you had these kind of protests being planned and the military parade. What exactly the details are, what this is connected to, we don't know. We know that it's political in nature. That's what investigators are saying. And there's fears that more of this is going to happen.
Steven Beardsley, thank you so much for updating us.
Thank you.